It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in at Sports by the Book here at the South Point Hotel and Casino, South Point Studio, as always. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White's alongside. First time for me in April. I was going to make an April Fool's joke, but it would have been stale and old and not timely at this point, Alex. Wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, you actually got 2 days off. That's good. You seem refreshed, ready to go, ready to give us your Final Four.
I don't know
predictions.
I don't know if I'm ready to go. I don't know if I'm refreshed. I know I'm here, and that's more than enough for me at this point. Jim Root's going to join us in about 15 minutes. Look at his thoughts. I don't know if it's boots on the ground yet in Phoenix or not for Jim, but regardless, it'll be boots on the ground later this weekend for our guy Jim Root, who's joined us, him and the Weavers all year long. Absent last week due to timing conflicts last week, but we're happy to have Jim back here today. If you're looking for Danny Burke, we'll have him tomorrow. So don't worry, you'll get your Danny Burke fix throughout the week. You're right. Since I've been here last, the Final Four is set. We knew one of the matchups already. Now we know the other one. A huge NFL trade happened today where the balance of power in the AFC already kind of felt like it was shifting. Of course, Kansas City is still at the top. But I'll give my thoughts on the Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans deal in a little bit. But first, Alex, I have to ask you. It's a shame Sean's not here because we could have asked him too, and I know the answer already. How's your first week of baseball been? Have you enjoyed it?
Not bad. Not great either. So I'm glad that I'm treading lightly here, jumping in. But yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed watching more than anything.
I can tell you the biggest baseball thing by a wide margin, as I think the Yankees actually may have just taken the lead back in Phoenix. Is the Yankees. That is the biggest thing for me by a wide margin in baseball so far this year. Where if they just took the lead in the 10th, they're up 4-2. It looked like actually I'm not. It was that Verdugo. I think it was Verdugo who went yard to give them a 2-run lead. They're the biggest story, where they went to Houston, swept the 4 games,
right,
and then now looking to take 2 out of 3 from the defending National League champions in Phoenix before even playing a home game. That's the biggest story by a significant margin for me, baseball-wise. Also, that
couple teams still undefeated, though.
Well,
what about the Tigers? You're not shocked.
I mean, look at
the Detroit Tigers.
Look at who the Tigers have played.
You have to bring up the Pirates because a lot of fans here.
Pirates 5-0.
Mm-hmm.
Pirates 5-0, first time, a long time for them. Brewers 4-1. Dodgers 6-2. Honestly, very easily could be 8-0.
Correct.
So far, but regardless, it is a long season, and we'll have plenty of baseball talk throughout, and we'll also have some baseball talk on the game starting in a little bit today as well. But let's go to the Final Four matchups for at least our few day out perspective here, where. Let's start with the early game, which is the miracle run of the North Carolina State Wolfpack marched on. They beat Duke pretty handily, all things considered, after a pretty lackluster first half from both teams. NC State really put a whooping on the Blue Devils in the second half. And they can take on Purdue, where, look, Edie played an amazing game. I had problems with the officiating, but I've had problems with the officiating in the way Edie's been officiated all year. So it was nothing new, but he was great in that game. And Purdue, again, this will be the next time we have a 16-1. The great trend will be, wait for them to get the 1 seed next year and then put them right into the national championship game, because we're heading for 2 for 2 with that, with Virginia, of course, 2018 losing to UMBC, flipping around, winning the title, and probably the most charmed run in the history of the NCAA tournament. And now Purdue doing it with a little more dominance mixed in. The Utah State obliteration mixed in, really destroying Gonzaga in the second half when the game that was pretty even, and then beating a Tennessee team that, quite frankly, might end up being the 3rd best team in college basketball when it's all said and done. They just ran into probably the 2nd best team. Red 9 with 146, Alex. Again, we'll be doing this tomorrow and Friday and, of course, day of. But what are your thoughts here 3 days away from that game in Phoenix?
Well, first of all, what do I know? Because I haven't bet on the Wolfpack this whole run that they have been on. But I do think it ends here, and I do think Purdue has looked very impressive. You mentioned it, that good game for Edie, 40 points, 16 rebounds against a very good 3rd in the country Tennessee defense. He's averaging 30 points and 15 rebounds in this tournament run here. I'm a believer in Purdue now, and I was a little hesitant, didn't know how they would do after the last 2 years of them in this tournament. But, I mean, we've talked about it and what this team is now, second best three-point shooting team. I think they have all the pieces here to make it to this championship game. I like the 9 here. I know the bettors took that 9.5 early in this week, but I like the favorite, Jeff.
So I'm looking for answers on NC State here, where I would love to see this miraculous 11 seed that was losing to Louisville at halftime in the first game in the ACC tournament. By the way, I bet Louisville money line that day. I don't know if I actually publicly said that yet or not, but oh, maybe NC State did lackadaisical season. Louisville will get to it. They were winning at halftime. So I wasn't totally off, even though I was. And then, look, this has been miraculous what has happened. And, of course, everyone's attention, and DJ Burns was magnificent against Duke. They had no answer. I am very much concerned, and I hate that this is the take, but this is what it's going to be in these Purdue games until we get to a national title game, where I'm sure I'll have a similar-ish take anyway. How this game is officiated is going to matter, because you put 2 fouls on Mo Diarra quickly. You put basically a position where Middlebrooks has to come in and be the one who probably has to guard Edey. You can't put Burns on him. Burns can't defend anybody. He definitely won't be able to defend Edey. So I would honestly, if I'm NC State, I'd go zone. And I would basically say, all right, I know Purdue is the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country. Their guards look scared to shoot the ball against Tennessee. They really did. Honestly, everyone who wasn't Connector or Edey in that game looked scared to shoot the ball on both sides. So make the guards beat you. And if they beat you, all right, so be it. Edey's going to get his 25, 30 points. It's going to happen. It's just the nature of the beast at this point. If I'm NC State, I'm making those guards beat me. And if Purdue can win a game like they did against Tennessee, where Edey puts up 40 and the guards don't do that much, then so be it. Then you tip your hat and say, you know what? A college player who, yes, much maligned to some, you can't deny that he's an excellent college player. He just is. You can have the debate of what he is at the next level, which I don't think he's a particularly good pro prospect, but that's a different discussion for a different day. I mean, Edey had more than half of the Boilers' points against Tennessee. I would do that. With that said, I think this is a Purdue cover. I haven't bet either of these teams in this tournament, period, which is pretty funny because they're both here. But the only one I considered Purdue at all was actually against Tennessee, because I thought that the game was going to be officiated the way that it ended up being,
right,
where Tennessee was in monster foul trouble and somehow Edey escaped the game with 1 foul, which is also nonsense. But I just don't see how this game, unless if DJ Horn goes off and is matching Edey point per point, I don't see how NC State stays in this game. Now, I thought NC State was going to lose in round 1 to Texas Tech. I thought they were going to lose to Marquette. They're still playing. It's amazing. So I would only lean to lay it with Purdue in this game, Alex. I really would.
It's funny. I really haven't bet on either of these teams either. I did bet against NC State. I was on Marquette money line, and I did take Purdue money line as a hedge there against Tennessee. But it is very confusing with this NC State team. They're still 43rd on KenPom, 40th adjusted offense, 44th adjusted defense, but they are on this miraculous run, and they do have a lot of momentum here. I mean, this team was 17-14 before the ACC tournament. Now they've won 9 straight games. So I don't think it's going to be all that easy. I think they hang in there for the first half and maybe a little bit more, but ultimately I do think Purdue pulls away. And like you said, I mean, this has been the officiating on Zach Edey all year long, so what makes you think it's going to change here in this
there's no
game?
reason to think. And again, if we get UConn and Purdue, which, by the way, Chris and company put the exactas up for the exact result for the national championship game, and Connecticut's minus 130 over Purdue.
Yes.
Connecticut over Purdue minus 130, which makes sense. What's UConn's price overall now, Alex?
Minus 260. I actually think that moved a little bit too, because I know Purdue went up to plus 240, I believe. So that might have moved a little bit. But I am kind of looking at Purdue beating UConn here, getting that 7-2.
Well, I'd rather have if you're betting Purdue right now. What's Purdue over Bama?
Purdue over Bama. 20-1.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would do 0.7 of a unit on it, 7-2 and 3/10 of a unit on a 20-1. I think I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
In all honesty, than Purdue outright.
Even though there is not one person I've heard that even thinks Alabama can cover in this game against the Huskies.
You know what, Alex? Maybe I'll change that here because we've talked about Alabama. You know, it's pretty funny. Other than UConn, where I ended up taking an in-game number on UConn against Illinois. Good. Very good. Didn't need it. This is an interesting game with Alabama. We're up to 12 behind us. There's a lot of 11.5 in the market on this game. Total's 160.5. Look, you've known me all year long on Alabama. I think they are completely unbettable pre-flop because of the nature of how they play. With that said, because of the nature of how they play, Alabama could make 18 threes and pull this thing outright. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying UConn won't cover. But if there's ever a team that has the right blueprint here to pull a massive upset, as weird and as backwards as it sounds from what we've said all year about Bama of, hey, they're too reliant on a three. Hey, they're terrible on defense. This is the type of matchup that I actually, if Clemson was in this game, I don't think there'd be a number big enough not to lay on UConn. I really don't. Yeah. Where I think that Clemson would struggle to score and they'd struggle to stop UConn. Like, that would probably be UConn by 25, honestly, if it was Clemson. Again, I'm not saying Bama's going to win outright or anything crazy like that, but the case for, all right, Bama hits 18 threes and this is a game and they cover or they somehow pull the outright, I don't think that should stun. It will surprise me, but I don't think it should stun a lot of people like it will because of just the nature of how Alabama plays basketball.
You make a great point. In UConn, up to this point, they allowed 52 to Stetson and San Diego State and Illinois. Northwestern had the high mark at 58 points. Yeah. And then this Alabama team, though, scored 58 points in the second half of their first round over Charleston. It was Charleston, of course, but 54 points in the second half in the Elite Eight over Clemson. So this team can get hot. They can score quickly. Besides the pace and them being a very good three-point shooting team, what can they do differently than Illinois to hang in this for the full game?
Actually commit to the pace. Well, and also don't do what Illinois did. And this is kind of the moment where it's like, okay, UConn was fortunate to be up 5 at halftime with how poorly they played on offense. When Brett Underwood's like, oh, I don't care if Klingon blocks 100. Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah. Don't attack the guy who clearly is, A, if they're not calling fouls on him, forget it. And B, he is as good of a shot blocker as we've seen in the last 15 years in college basketball. So, look, Bama will be committed to the bit. They will be committed to, you know what? We're going to take our 45 threes. Now, the other problem is, and I know I'll bring this up with Jim, and I know Jim loves this when I bring this up, how does the shooting in the football stadium translate over here? Do we have a game where the shooting lines are so messed up for Bama that they shoot horribly and they lose by 30? Yeah, it could happen. But we could also maybe even get 2018 Villanova. I know that special team that I just mentioned. But, boy, you hit threes. You got a shot in this game against UConn. Again, would it shock me if Alabama covers? No. Would it shock me if they win outright? It would surprise me, but I don't think it's as jarring as some will say after the fact. It is a 12-point underdog in the Final Four. You don't see that very often. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to check in with our guy, Jim Root, and get his thoughts on these two Final Four games and two teams that clearly should have been in the big dance playing for an NIT title tomorrow in Indianapolis. We'll get Jim's thoughts on those games when we get back. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
From the South Point Studio. The perfect blend of sports.
But I think the Niners are going to wear them down. Detroit Pistons lost their 36 games.
Comedy.
See over-under on that relationship lasting. I'm going to put mayo in the coffee.
Yeah. I am beautiful. And a whole lot of Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Join Ryan McCormick.
That's at least 2 picks outside of our own in the first round next year. Oreo.
And host Frank Nicotero.
I look at the clock, I go, ah! Ah!
Oh! Watch Punchlines live at noon every weekday.
Once you've satisfied your hunger, get ready for more of the hottest casino games in Vegas. Our 24-hour, 30-table non-smoking poker room proudly hosts all the most popular poker games with a variety of betting limits. Visit the poker room for a schedule of daily tournaments. Whether you're going to hold 'em or fold 'em, the best place for poker is at South Point Casino. You'll notice that our craps tables are usually the loudest in the casino. If you've never played, join one of our free craps lessons to find out what makes this game so exciting. Check with the craps dealer for schedules and give it a roll. Bingo is also an exciting way to spend your time. We offer 7 sessions of bingo every day. And each session includes a cash ball jackpot, 12 bingo games, a progressive double action game, and a $10,000 bonus coverall. Electronic units are available. If you haven't played bingo with us, give it a try today. Guests can also get in on the action at our one-of-a-kind race and sports books. 2 separate rooms designed to maximize your experience and comfort. Our sports book, with over 400 seats, puts you right in the middle of the action, 24 hours a day.
Welcome back in. Sports by the Book is the show. South Point Studio to site, and now joining us for one last dance here on this show here for the 2023-2024 season of Three-Man Weave. We had him the first. He'll be the last of the Weavers on with us this year. Our guy, Jim Root, with us right now. Jim, thanks for joining us. Are you boots on the ground already in the desert, or are you elsewhere still?
Oh yeah, I am out in Phoenix after 12 days in Vegas. Came straight down to Phoenix. I'm out in my mother's screened-in porch here. So
Awesome.
Living the true Arizona lifestyle here, getting really into the feeling of the atmosphere.
How many cacti are on the back porch there, Jim?
It looks like 2 here, a third over there. So we're looking at 3. We got a trifecta.
Perfect. You hit all the stereotypical things down there for sure. All right, before we get to the UConn Alabama game, let's just start real quick with NC State and Purdue, and I just want to focus on NC State first because Jim, this team was losing to Louisville in the first round of the ACC tournament. Become the second team to go 5-5. Of course, 2011 UConn with Kemba Walker, the only other one. They won a national championship, but slightly different circumstances with that UConn team as opposed to this one. But Jim, can you put into perspective what this run, at least to you, what has stood out to you in this run? And just like historically speaking, this is a run that just doesn't happen in the NCAA tournament. Sure, you can get 11 seeds, but those are usually high-end, smaller conference teams like the Loyola team, like VCU. This is a mediocre, middling Power 5 team that got hot at the right time, and they're playing in Phoenix now.
Yeah, I've been calling it a magic carpet ride. That's what NC State is on right now because for most of the year, mediocre might even be friendly. They lost 10 of their last 14 games in an ACC that took its lumps and took some flack in the media. And of course, they got some runs in the postseason here, but throughout the year, the league just wasn't that good. And this NC State team kind of embodied that. They didn't seem to know how to use DJ Burns for most of the year. Kevin Keatts is known as a pressing, trapping kind of coach, and he's got this lumbering refrigerator of a big man in the paint. It didn't seem to mesh very well, but down the stretch, they've sort of figured out their pecking order. They've shortened the rotation a little bit. They've got the right guards playing the right amount of minutes. They're playing through Burns every single second that he's on the floor, and that's what you should do because, hey, probably end up in foul trouble in most games. And against Purdue, I could see that happening as well. But, it's been kind of the idea, the platonic ideal of what March could be. Any team enters with the chance to just keep winning. And, most teams you don't think are good enough to do so. And people probably didn't think NC State was good enough to do so. I sure didn't. But you just keep winning. You keep finding ways to do it. 9 in a row for them. And all it takes is 2 more. It's really all it takes for the Wolfpack. And, that's the dream of everybody as you enter March in the conference tournaments.
Jim, I remember you were a believer in this Purdue team. You picked them in this region, even though a lot of us had Tennessee or Creighton maybe pulling the upset here. But what Matt Painter has done in building this team around Zach Edey has been very impressive. Now they're a 9-point favorite over this NC State team. Do you think they can cover that number and go to the championship game?
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate you giving me some credit there as the only Final Four team I got correct. We've got to bring that up, make sure people know that, hey, every once in a while I get one correct. Every once in a while I'm right. But yeah, no, I think Purdue is a really difficult matchup for a lot of teams that haven't seen them before. One, just because Zach Edey is a ridiculous anomaly in the entire sport. You have to guard him so differently, pretty much half to double. You've got to have big guys that you can cycle through with fouls. And then their offense, they run a lot of intricate stuff. It's not just plant Edey on the block and throw a ball to him and robotically wait for him to score. Like, they run a lot of big pick and roll to get him down on the block. They run a lot of dribble handoff type stuff where they get a lot of people moving around him. And NC State's going to have to deal with that. They have not been a good pick and roll defense so far this year. And they're coming off a game where Duke didn't want to punish them for some reason. But I go back to the Marquette game, and I know NC State won, but Marquette got a million open jumpers. They went 4 for 31 from deep. That is a really prolific ball screen offense. And I think there's a chance Purdue generates the same kind of open jumpers. So I actually lean Purdue here. Obviously, they've got to win by double digits. That's tough to do on a big scale. And I looked back, and 11 seeds against 1 seeds are 5-1-1 against the spread. So they've been really good. Typically, that's in a regional final, not in a Final Four game. But those teams have held up, the ones that are playing really, really well, above their heads, really even. So I'm nervous to lay it with Purdue, but I think Purdue has a lot of matchup advantages that NC State's really going to have to deal with.
It's just I hate that this is a part of the narrative, but at least it just is when you're dealing with a guy, the bigness of Zach Edey. The refs don't know how to officiate him, and we saw it again in the Elite Eight where Edey somehow plays the whole game and only commits 1 foul, which is insane, at least to me. And part of the reason that I thought Purdue would match up okay with Tennessee, just based off the physicality. The one thing that I will ask you, though, Jim, and you brought this up with Kevin Keats before. Kevin Keats historically has wanted to press people. He's from the Rick Pitino system. They like to go 94 feet on defense. Do you think we see something similar to that, where we have kind of seen almost like, I want to go back to that Ohio State game with Purdue, where Ohio State made them use the whole shot clock and Purdue turned the ball over more than they had in any other game. Do you think NC State should try something from that mode where, all right, it's not a turnover press, it's just hey, we're going to slow you down and make you start your offense with 12 seconds on the shot clock as opposed to 18 on the shot clock?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think like every team should do that in all of college basketball. I just think it makes sense to force teams to start later. But yeah, NC State has done that. Per synergy, they're at a top 15 rate of pressure in the entire country. And, not all of that, like you said, has been to force turnovers, which they have. They can mix those looks in, and I think they should, to keep Lawyer and Smith and Jones guessing on Purdue's backcourt. But yeah, just generally make them throw the 2 lobs back and forth at half court to get over the line and get set. And then suddenly those really complicated Purdue offensive system, the plays they run, they've got a little less time. If it doesn't work, they've got less time to go into just a straight ball screen for Smith and Edey. I think that makes a lot of sense. And, that kind of goes back to underdogs typically should shorten the game, less possessions, less time for the talent gap to play out, and make no mistake about it. There is a talent gap here. Purdue has the better team, but I think if they keep mixing defenses like they're capable of, like Keats has shown an affinity for doing over the course of his career, it can keep Purdue off balance, prevent them from getting in a rhythm offensively. I think Duke had issues with that. It wasn't a ton of different defenses by NC State, but it showed that Duke just was never comfortable offensively. They're going to have to try to do the same thing to Purdue here.
Before we get to the other game, I just want to ask you, so lean to Purdue, not sure about laying that many points here. Any thoughts on the total? 156.5, I believe it is sitting at.
Yeah, I kind of like under. I think both teams can score fairly efficiently, especially Purdue. Once they're set in their half court and execution style, I don't think Edey's going to have too tough of a time getting inside and getting points. And we just saw the Purdue cold shooting game against Tennessee. I'd be surprised if a top 3-point shooting team in the country is that cold again. But I just think tempo is going to be slow based on what Jeff just asked there. I think NC State's going to be smart enough to know they can't get up and down with this Purdue team. They can't let them get the transition threes. And while NC State will probably look to get some quick buckets, defensively, I think they're really going to try to keep it in the half court. So despite some efficiency, I would lean towards the under just because I think there's just not going to be enough shots going up to hit that total over the course of 40 minutes.
146. Correct.
Jim, before we get to the Alabama-UConn game, I just want to look back to Saturday real quick with UConn. The 30-0 run against Illinois. Jim, that's the most amazing. And again, look, all of us on set are too young for the UCLA dominance of that. So if you want to yell at us in our Twitter mentions, go for it. But there was 30-0 with 2 3-pointers made in the middle of it. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, because usually we see a monster run like that. Oh, it's because a team just got thermonuclear hot from 3. No. UConn just shut Illinois down completely. Oh, by the way, the second best offensive team in the country going into that game. Shut them down for 9 minutes. Oh, and then just put 30-0 on them. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, Jim.
Yeah, UConn has become a different animal to where I'm like, is this just a slow march to a coronation? I sort of felt like that's what the Final Four was last year. I said before, I bet they win the 2 games by a combined 30, and then they won by 17 and by 13. And so that turned out to be prescient. Purdue might be able to give them more of a fight, but this team is just so dominant in basically every facet. The most notable example of that is kind of what you're referring to. They're just incredible at the rim on both ends. They're top 5 nationally in field goal percent, or 2-point field goal percentage, on both ends of the floor. Part of that is Klingon just being a ridiculous shot blocker defensively. He alters everything. Illinois, for some reason, kept trying to bludgeon him and shoot at his armpits. I do not recommend that to Alabama. But it clearly started to get to Illinois during that run. Like, their 3-pointers were rushed. They felt like, all right, we need to hit this to keep pace with this UConn offense. And Alabama's super comfortable taking threes, really, really high rate of them, and they make quite a few too. But it starts to wear on you. We're like, we're never going to get an easy bucket. It is a complete jump shooting performance against UConn. And then the other end, UConn's throwing lob dunks to Klingon and Samson Johnson. Stephon Castle's getting to the rim for layups. Newton's getting to the rim for layups. Their ball movement is pristine. They kind of wear you down with the quality of the shot they get and the quality of the shot they allow. At some point, you're going to start to see those dissipate or move away from each other. UConn getting layups and dunks and giving up jumpers. So I think it's just kind of this unstoppable force that UConn has become. And I anticipate them winning both games in this Final Four by double digits as well.
All right, so I'm gonna put you on the spot then. Can you make a case for Alabama covering this game? I think it's, at least from my end, their variance is so large where, all right, they could lose this game by 35. They could be in this game to the last 30 seconds of the game if they're hitting their 3-pointers, Jim.
Yeah, you got to knock down shots. And I think the most important thing for them is they got to figure out how to get good threes, get open threes, because UConn does not want to rotate defensively. So they don't really help on drives. They figure, okay, you beat the guy in the perimeter. Good luck finishing against Donovan Klingon. So the guys in the wings don't really collapse down. Alabama's going to have to find a way to force some help there. I think the big thing is, can Nate Oates go against his entire analytical philosophy and tell his guys to take some mid-range jumpers? If he's going to tell Mark Sears and Aaron Estrada and Rylan Griffin, still ignore mid-range, go all the way to the rim against these guys, you're going to see Donovan Klingon block 10 shots, just kind of alter everything the way he did against Illinois. I do not recommend that. But he's a smart guy. I think he's going to watch that Illinois film and be like, ooh, yeah, this isn't going to work. We're going to need to maybe take some of those pull up at the elbow or the floater game. I think Sears and Estrada, the 2 lefties, can make that tough floater over the top. They're going to need to get some of those that starts to force the defense to collapse. And then the threes open up. And once you get those jumpers, we know Alabama can get scorching hot. So that's what I think they need to do, is start to find that soft underbelly of the UConn defense in the mid-range, make enough that UConn starts being worried about it. They start to collapse, boom, shots open up. And that's when the Alabama hot offense can keep them in the game.
Luckily, we've had games all week to get us to Saturday for these two big Final Four games. But tomorrow we have the NIT Championship, and Jeff, he said it, these two proving that they should have been in the NCAA tournament. Indiana State right now, 3.5-point favorite over Seton Hall. Total on this one is 158.5. Any bets for you in this NIT Championship?
Yeah, I think it's awesome that they're the two that made the final because they were the first two out per the committee. And I think everybody that kept Virginia out from a bracketologist perspective had one of these two in, more or less, maybe a couple St. John's in there too. But I kind of think Indiana State's playing with this incredible connectivity right now offensively. I like the story Josh Schertz had, or the announcers had, about Schertz during last game, where he got a bunch of like high school film and AAU film from his players' families and was like, this is why you play. You're playing because you have fun playing basketball. Enjoy that. You could clearly see the joy shining through in that game against Utah, breaking pressure, getting layups, knocking down threes. And they've got a major, major crowd advantage. It seems like the entire city of Terre Haute made the trip over to Indianapolis. All that said, I think this is a little too high in the spread. I think over a possession, this feels more like a coin flip because Seton Hall has the athleticism advantage, physicality advantage, and they're playing extremely, extremely well lately as well. Holloway's a good game planner. I think I'd take the plus 3.5 if I was forced to bet that game.
Jim, should Josh Schertz take the St. Louis job after this, or should he stay in Terre Haute?
Has he already taken the St. Louis job? Ooh, that's my question. I think he should take it. I think he's probably going to get paid pretty handsomely to be there. It's a top 2 job in that entire conference based on resources. I think it's SLU or Dayton based on what they spend on basketball. Pretty good talent in St. Louis. I think he should take it, and perhaps part of this is my brother's a SLU alum, and I would love to see the Billikens back on top. But I think he'd be a great fit there, both regionally and just kind of his demeanor and fit with a basketball school.
No, I 100% agree with what you're saying, Jim. It just, I think a lot of people, because Travis Ford, well, first off, I forgot Travis Ford was still there. I thought he had already been fired, but now obviously he's not there. But I mean, that's a pretty good like you said, good basketball recruiting hotbed there in St. Louis. A really good venue for the A-10 as well. It's Chaffetz as well, just off of downtown. That is an underrated job and a sleeping giant in that league. I mean, we saw Frank Martin at UMass, another one of those sleeping giants. They already got better. They got a double bye this year before losing to VCU. It might be pretty quick that the A-10 turns into a much better full top to bottom conference as opposed to this top heavy mess that it's been the last few years.
Yeah, there's whispers that that Schertz has already he like turned down Louisville. I don't know for sure if he did. I think he turned down Florida Atlantic, his alma mater. Mm-hmm. So perhaps he is going to SLU. And then I think the ultimate question is how many of these guys go with him. Is Robbie Avila a Billiken next year? Is Ryan Conwell a potential NBA player down the road? Is he going to be a Billiken next year? If you just kind of plug and play this team in St. Louis, then yeah, they're an A-10 contender immediately once he goes there.
100%. I mean, look, that's the good nature of the transfer portal now. Bad and good, obviously, be very bad for Indiana State, but it would be good right away for Schertz. And actually, Jim, before we let you go, I just do want to ask you this, because John L. Davis went in the portal yesterday, which is now that DeVries followed his dad to West Virginia. John L. Davis is the best name out on the transfer portal. Of course, Dusty May went to Michigan. Do you think he follows his former coach to Ann Arbor? Or do you think this is another power that ends up with John L. Davis, who I think right away could end up being the best player on a lot of teams in college basketball, if not maybe just one or two of them at this point?
Yeah, I think that the winds are swirling that he is likely to Ann Arbor. I don't know about Vlad Golden, the center. I think it's a little less determined there. But it seems like he's the kind of guy that's going to follow his coach. I think he and Dusty are pretty tied together in what they built down in Boca Raton. Another fun name to watch, Great Osobor, the Mountain West Player of the Year at Utah State. I feel like he's another guy that's going to follow his coach up to Washington. You know, he already followed him from Montana State to Utah State. What's to stop him from going up to the Pac Northwest and becoming a Big Ten player now at Washington? But yeah, those are two really big dominoes that will probably command quite a bit of money in the NIL market, and then can really alter the fortunes of whatever team they go to.
And again, the transfer portal, and look, when we get around the next season, a lot of these teams will look very, very different, to say the very least. He's Jim Root. Again, find his work at 3-Man Weave at Second Chance Points on Twitter. Jim, it's been a pleasure all season long, man. Thanks for hanging out with us again all year long. Give our thanks to Kai and Matt as well, and thanks for being with us today, and enjoy the greater Phoenix area over the next few days.
We'll be all over the place from Scottsdale to Phoenix to Glendale. It's a rather spread out venue, but let's just get some good games to close out the season. That's what we're hoping for. We appreciate you guys having us on all year. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jim
Root, everyone. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, look at some night baseball. We'll also look at the big deal in the NFL today and how that may impact the AFC. That's next. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rock and dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grandview Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grandview Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grandview Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. Final 20 minutes or so for us. Again, big thanks to Jim Root for joining us. Again, him, Kai McKee, and Matt Cox joining us throughout the college basketball season. We will see them again next fall. We'll see them again next fall and winter throughout the college basketball season.
Kind of disappointed this is their last showing because I want to know who they have when we have our championship matchup.
Well, you know what? Maybe we'll get a lucky break, but I'm gonna, as Ann has said, the remote within a remote is always a dangerous game. And I don't know how that internet would be at State Farm Stadium. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. By the way, we'll have some news for you on our program coming up next week as well. Not yet ready to announce that, but we'll have some news for you actually on Monday's show. We'll announce that a little bit. We're not going anywhere. I'll just tell you that. We're not going anywhere. But a little bit different on when you'll see us.
That's right.
Moving forward. All right. Baseball. Alex White. The weather on the Eastern Seaboard's been miserable today. The Orioles and the Royals had a 5-hour rain delay today. That sounds like fun, right?
No,
it sounds like fun.
No, I've been through that.
The Phillies
Fun.
and the Reds, a whole lot of fun as well, and another big rain delay. Just misery if you're at one of those games here today. Let's go to these games starting later, though. There's one starting in 5 minutes. Pittsburgh and the Washington Nationals, one of 2 undefeated teams. The Pittsburgh Pirates, as we all expected here, Alex, And look, I'll credit the Pirates. I'll credit them. The young talent is performing early in the season. They're getting enough pitching, but in the end, here, this is one tonight where they send their ace Mitch Keller to the mound. Do you really want to lay $1.50 with the Pirates on the road against anyone still at this stage of the season?
It is tough on the road, but we know that the Washington Nationals are definitely in a rebuild as well. I will say I didn't know that Miami was going to be that bad. They didn't.
0-7 to Miami Marlins after a loss today.
Yeah, they have not done great here, but I like Mitch Keller to have a bounce back. He didn't have a great first showing here. I think it should be about -160, and I also have him significantly higher in the power ratings over Trevor Williams. So definitely the better pitcher on the mound.
Oh, I'll agree with that. It's just a matter of, again, your team that's undefeated, they're not going 162-0. And if they did, it'd be a heck of a story if they did that. But they'll play the Orioles, by the way, on Friday in their home opener in PNC Park. That actually will be probably the most electric that venue has been in a very, very long time. All right, moving along here. Colorado and the Cubs. This is a 4:40 Pacific, so 6:40 local time in Chicago. I'm going to be honest with you, Alex. The starter for the Cubs tonight, Little.
Yeah,
I don't know who he is. He's a -210 favorite tonight against the Rockies, who are just again. I've said this to you off the air. I don't remember if I've said this on the air or not. I think Colorado's the worst team in baseball. Their pitching is just so pathetically bad. Poor Kyle Freeland got lit up again, and his ERA went down 10 runs just because of how bad he was in the opener. -210 on the Cubs, wind blowing in. That's why the total's only 7. Yes. So, Alex, is just one of those where Wrigley Field, more so than any park, and we'll talk about this all summer long, that's the one that's most influenced by the wind. It is going to be high totals and overs with the wind blowing out, with the wind blowing in, and it's blowing in significantly tonight. It is very hard to score any sort of runs when the wind's blowing in at Wrigley.
Yeah, this is a stay away for me, definitely, Jeff, because of that wind blowing. I did ask Ryan McCormick, I don't know why I was saying Kyle, Ryan McCormick about Luke Little because he does have a low power rating here in starting pitcher rate. He said that he is typically a closer that they are trying in this role. So we'll see how that goes. With the Rockies, you brought them up. They also have one of the lowest bullpen rating. So typically you'd want to look to the over here, fading those pitchers, but with the wind blowing in, I can't do anything, and I'm not going to lay -210 here.
Colorado not worth a shot at plus 185? No? Yes? That's
after your spiel of them being the worst team in the league.
But it's baseball. It's 1 out of 162. You can end up with an accident every single day. So I don't know. I might end up. And are you taking it? And by the way, this just shows our director over here, Ann G. Sorry, I didn't want to spoil the whole thing there. But you said last night, Ann, you bet 3 NBA underdogs, the 3 biggest on the board. You didn't even realize you did it. But the Wizards won, who were $6 yesterday. Yeah, plus 650. We should just follow Ann on the dogs there. I'd much rather follow Ann than Sean. Sorry, Sean, but it's true. I now one. All right, last National League game. Sean's not even here and he catches us straight. That's just not nice. Giants and Dodgers. Kyle Harrison, Tyler Glass now for this one. They're like, the Dodgers are just a juggernaut. They are so good, Alex. And Mookie Betts is. Oh, man. Look, we've talked about the MVP race before the year. He is right now, again, we're 8 games in, so it could change. He is the MVP of the league through 8 games. The Giants, who I thought would be a little bit better than they've shown through the first 6 games. Now, granted, they've had to draw the Dodgers here, which is a bad draw for 2 of these 6 games. It's 8.5. It's 1.5, $1.15 if you want to lay it with the Dodgers tonight on that run line. I'd actually look to the first 5 under would be the way that I would look to this. The only concern is the Dodgers mash left-handed pitching. That is always going to be concerning whenever you take it an under or an underdog against the Dodgers when it's a left-handed starter.
I need to find the numbers, but I know the Dodgers have been doing very well on their team totals and going over that number. So that might be a way for you to look at this. Jeff, kind of fading the Giants and their runs, but backing the Dodgers here. Tyler Glasnow on the mound for the Dodgers. Very good pitching rating for him. And then, like you said, left-handed Kyle Harrison on the mound for the Giants. I think that number's about right here at minus 220. So I'm not ready to do any run lines just yet, even though I know how good the Dodgers are. And I think that there's one team you can start betting run lines on, it would be the Dodgers.
I would, again, first 5 unders, 4.5. I think that would be the way I would go. Again, tread carefully. Dodgers. Honestly, tread carefully in any Dodger games with the unders, just with how good that lineup, especially at the top, is, especially if Will Smith's going to hit as well. All right. To Houston. Chris Bassett for the Blue Jays. Christian Javier for the Astros. Alex, I'll be completely honest with you again, and this just kind of shows that the work will be put in through the summer. I had forgotten that Ronel Blanco had made the Major League roster for the Astros, and he, of course, threw a no-hitter 2 days ago. Now it's a different pitching matchup. Of course, Javier, when he's on, is super, super good. Minus 150 on the Astros, 8.5 the total here. What would you look to in this one there at Minute Maid?
Only the home team. I would definitely look at Houston here. I think this is a turnaround spot for them after getting swept by the Yankees, and we just saw their no-hitter, of course. But this, money is coming in on Houston, open about minus 137, and it's just been moving up. I think that 150 is about right here for the Astros.
And then the last one of the night going, because the Mets and the Tigers are a rain out, they'll play 2 tomorrow. Strider and, what a pitching mismatch this is. Dominic Leone, who is a reliever who's going to be the opener for the White Sox tonight. All right, so Alex, it's baseball. Anything can happen on a single day.
Woo.
We're getting a home team on game number 5 of the season as a $3 underdog. Now, pitching matchup-wise, that is probably right, and the roster difference is probably right as well. But do you look at that underdog price and be like, all right, maybe I'll just take a piece, and if it loses, so be it? It's a home team at 3-1 in the first week of the season.
The Braves just beat the Phillies, 3-0 in Philadelphia?
Yeah, but the Braves also lost to the White Sox last night 3-2, Alex.
It's good thinking there. I'm no thank you. Atlanta looks so good right now. They are just starting where they left off in the regular season of last year, of course, and dominating fashion. So I think you're right. It's a very big pitching mismatch.
Craziness. We'll see that matchup a little later. Still in a weather delay there in Chicago. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll look at the hockey for today. And also, there's a whole card of NBA. We can also look at some futures as well in the NBA, because I will say this: the Western Conference is very interesting right now, where the Nuggets hold that number 1 seed. The Thunder losing to Joel Embiid's return yesterday against the 76ers, and the Phoenix Suns are currently the 8. Just how ridiculous is that? We'll discuss that and more. Final 10 minutes when we get back. Sports by the Book.
Once you've satisfied your hunger, get ready for more of the hottest casino games in Vegas. Our 24-hour 30-table non-smoking poker room proudly hosts all the most popular poker games with a variety of betting limits. Visit the poker room for a schedule of daily tournaments. Whether you're going to hold 'em or fold 'em, the best place for poker is at South Point Casino. You'll notice that our craps tables are usually the loudest in the casino. If you've never played, join one of our free craps lessons to find out what makes this game so exciting. Check with the craps dealer for schedules and give it a roll. Bingo is also an exciting way to spend your time. We offer 7 sessions of bingo every day. Bingo! And each session includes a cash ball jackpot, 12 bingo games, a progressive double action game, and a $10,000 bonus coverall. Electronic units are available. If you haven't played bingo with us, give it a try today. Guests can also get in on the action at our one-of-a-kind race and sports books. 2 separate rooms designed to maximize your experience and comfort. Our sportsbook, with over 400 seats, puts you right in the middle of the action, 24 hours a day. The friendly ticket writers are happy to help, and it's conveniently located next to the famous Del Mar Deli, where you'll find supersized portions of delicious deli items like roast beef, pastrami, and Reuben sandwiches, or soups, salads, and pizza, plus spectacular desserts fit for a king. And right next door is the Racebook, over 150 seats, each with its own TV screen. There are 16 interactive player terminals, so you can bet right from your seat.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles, Alex White alongside. The final 10 minutes or so for us here today. Let's go to the NBA where, now that college hoops is done, you're going to be hearing a lot of the NBA these last 2 weeks of the regular season. Of course, the NBA playoffs get rolling about 2 weeks from now. You brought up the futures to me when we walked in here. And you brought up one team that was a little bit surprising that the number was where it was at, and that's the Minnesota Timberwolves, Alex, where the T-Wolves, by the way, the T-Wolves tonight are hosting the Raptors, and they're only 17-point favorites at home tonight against Toronto, so they're a giant favorite against one of the league's worst. But right now, they are a half game behind Denver. They're hoping Karl Anthony Towns is able to come back after they win a round, which is no gimme. They might even be an underdog in round one with the way that the Western Conference is set up right now. But 10-1 to win the West for a potential 1 seed. Now, I did get burned. In the past, we saw this with Indiana against the LeBron-era Heat. These similar numbers, they never got by them. But it is interesting to see where Western Conference, where I don't buy the Clippers, I really don't buy Dallas. Potential matchup against Sacramento in round one would sound pretty good for Minnesota. I think that might be worth a little bit of a splash, especially if it gets even a little bit longer over the next few days if they dip down the seed line to the 3 as opposed to the 2.
And remember, this is a team that was sitting in that 1 seed for most of the season. They've been very consistent. The Denver Nuggets just passed them, just kind of turned it on after the All-Star break. So this Timberwolves team is very talented. They've got the height. And you're right, there are a few teams down the list that we can't really trust just yet. I mean, the Mavs are starting to put it together. We're seeing Luka and Kyrie really work well together there. And then the Suns, they can always turn it on as well. The Lakers, as of late, have been winning. I think they've won 6 of their last 7 games. So there's a lot of talent in the Western Conference, and it's a very tight race here till the end. But 10-1 is very intriguing.
7 of their last 10. 6 of their last 7 since that loss to Golden State, where it looked like, all right, the wheels might come off for the Lakers. Again, the one thing that does, you mentioned it does complicate it with the West. Your current 7 through 10. Your current 7 through 10. The Sacramento Kings, who were the 3 seed last year, and a team that was thought to be on the rise going into the season. The Phoenix Suns are the 8 seed. Yeah, that's Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. Yeah, that's a pretty good team sitting there at number 8. The Lakers, we know at this point. They cared about the in-season tournament, really took the foot off the gas for a few months. Now we're trying to get back to that 8 seed so they don't have to play a potential one and done against Golden State, who's the 10. I just mentioned 4 teams that if you put them in the Eastern Conference, be one of the 4 best teams in the East at this point with the way that the Knicks are falling down. With their injuries, I'm not buying Orlando. Indiana still seems a year away from being a legitimate playoff threat, even with that in-season tournament run. And the Sixers are the Sixers, even with Joel Embiid back. But this Western Conference, Alex, really has the setup to be as good of a postseason as we've seen in the league.
No, you're absolutely right. And then the Kings take down the Clippers last night. Yep. No Kyrie in that one. And we've worried. Kawhi. I'm sorry. Kawhi Leonard. We worried about him and the injuries with that team all year long, and now they're kind of happening down late here. But
it's the Clippers were when the Harden deal went through, they were awful, just truly awful for about 2.5, 3 weeks. Then they looked like the team everyone wanted them to be. Now, look, if Kawhi's dealing with injuries, we know how that's derailed them in the past. And James Harden, did you see last night, Alex, with Harden against the Kings? Here's James Harden's stat line last night. 6 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. Those are playoff level numbers from Harden of late.
Yes.
It's just not good enough. And if you're the Clippers, you need the correct version of James Harden, even if he is the number 3 guy. You need him in order to make a deep run in the playoffs. Again, we're talking about a team that's never made it to the NBA Finals. They're the only ones left now for the teams that have been around more than just 20 years. Nuggets, of course, busted through and won their title in their first final appearance a year ago. For the games tonight, and you're betting all the big underdogs again, so you're going to be on the Pistons, the Grizzlies, the Thunder with their backups, and the Raptors tonight. Just riding the Wizards. Wizards are 13 against the Lakers tonight, so Ann riding them. And, by the way, the underdog Wizard here in the studio, as we know. 13-point dogs, Washington. What's it at? Plus 550. Pretty good price. Can even get up to about plus 580 out there right now, it looks like.
I do want to ask you about the Eastern Conference, because you've been talking about the Sixers, and if they get Embiid back in time, they are sitting here 12-1 to win the Eastern Conference.
Probably not good enough to win 3 series where they're not going to have home, and they're going to have their 3-2. My math was bad there. 2 out of the 6 seed right now. You're probably going to have to win a playing game, then have to upset Boston, then have to play a series where you don't have home court against either Orlando, the Knicks, the Pacers. Any of those teams could end up in that 4-5. And then you have to beat Milwaukee. I mean, there'd be some great revenge there against their former coach with Doc coaching Milwaukee now, and it is also Doc Rivers in the playoffs. But you need a better price than that. I would need some. I'd actually probably want 25-1.
Wow.
They're going to be a pretty significant underdog against Boston. Just the Celtics, I know they're trustworthy issues with Boston because this group has been to the finals once, the last year to get a 3-0 to 3-3 and then choke in Game 7. I would very much look to for a better price if I want Philadelphia. What is Miami right now, Alex? What is Miami sitting at?
Miami is sitting at 12-1 as well.
I kind of like a better price on that as well. But I would say more so than anything that you're looking at needing better prices on all those teams. All right, let's wrap things up here today with the NFL news that came across early this morning. Ryan McCormick actually woke us up with the text.
Yes, he did.
This morning of Stephon Diggs going from Buffalo to Houston. So I don't want to call it tumultuous, but that's I think the best word for Stephon Diggs era in Buffalo, where started out awesome. Last year was very shaky. There were times where he was the 3rd best wide receiver on the field.
Yes.
Now he goes to Houston, where Alex, I think if you just look at the rosters and you look at the division Houston plays in, yes, the AFC South is better. It's Kansas City in the AFC, and then it's the Houston Texans. As long as C.J. Stroud doesn't have a pure second-year slump, sophomore slump, I think this is Houston as the second-best team, as the best competitor to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC moving forward.
Wow, you forgot about the AFC North that has 4 teams that are all
I didn't
playoff
contenders. I
contenders.
didn't forget about them. The Steelers, if you're going with Russell Wilson, good luck. Deshaun Watson's going to actually play more games than not, supposedly, for Cleveland this year, even though if they have a better backup now. I know everyone loved Flacco and he won comeback player of the year, but Jameis Winston's much better than Flacco at this point. And you know what? Cincinnati, I need to see Joe play a full season. If he does, then yes, Cincinnati very easily could be the second best team, like they've been in this little mini run with Mahomes and Burrow in Cincinnati. And Baltimore, I don't buy full term. I don't think their offense is as good as people think that it is. I know Lamar just won the MVP, but it just kind of ran out of candidates and gave it to Lamar because he played the best game last. And they have, Alex, they're returning 2 offensive line starters.
Oh, it's not good.
That's not good for the way that Baltimore wants to play. So, look, I'm high on C.J. Stroud. I'm high on DeMeco Ryans.
Yes.
This is a really, really good team and also in a weak division.
So what is Buffalo doing here? Because now their best wide receiver on the roster is Curtis Samuel as of right now.
I like Curtis Samuel, but not as a number 1.
Exactly, yeah.
It's I think they just wanted to get Diggs out of town. It's a big cap hit as well. The $30 million dead cap hit for this year, which kind of makes me think that they're treating 2024 as, all right, with Josh Allen, we'll still be good enough to make the playoffs. Maybe he gets hot in the postseason, they pull a few upsets and randomly make a Super Bowl. Really gearing up for 25. I think that's what it really is, more so than anything for Buffalo, where, again, you're in the right division if you're the Bills. Miami had no cap space. They had to get rid of a lot of their good pieces on defense. They did well with the money they had, and the Jets are the Jets. And New England's terrible. So you still could see Buffalo win a playoff game, win the division, but I think they're gearing it up for 2025.
The Jets have made some moves and should be getting Aaron Rodgers back, so they've got a shot.
There's no VP run in the future for Rodgers at least. So, look, if the Jets are going to win a division, it's got to come this year. You would expect. But look, we'll have odds from Chris and Company soon. Remember, the draft is 3 weeks from tomorrow. The schedule gets released 5 weeks from yesterday. So it's coming up. It's coming up ever so quicker. I can't even hold my smile back on that. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Tomorrow on the show, Danny Burke will join me. Alex gets a nice day off tomorrow, getting ready for Final Four weekend on Saturday. And, of course, Free Throw Friday with Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo, and Jimmy will show up. Jimmy Vaccaro will show up, hopefully as well. We'll see you next time tomorrow, 3 o'clock, right here, Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.